All right, welcome to today's Real Talk.
Yo.
Today, let's talk about director-DP relationships.
Okay.
Okie dokie.
So
To start,
kind of how we were taught as far as like, okay, here's what you do.
right.
I mean, I think we were taught from a very hierarchical perspective of like, okay, the director, it's their vision. They communicate to all the teams below them. They work closely with the director of photography, and the director of photography is in charge of taking what the director is saying, interpreting their creative vision,
Yeah.
and making it come to life through the camera using his department's camera and lighting.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, essentially the director, the buck stops. Well, it doesn't stop with the director. The buck stops with the producer. But
We're talking about director
the
director DP today.
the director's vision for the film is what we see. And
Yeah.
that includes every department,
Yeah.
including art and wardrobe and casting. I mean, everything down the board. It all trickles up or points up to the director. So with the director-DP relationship, they have to be a team that is, I think they have to understand each other very well. I think solid director-DP relationships, show us that they can almost anticipate each other.
Yeah.
And, the director says, well, I want it to be this. And the DP's like, I got you covered. Got your back, man.
Yeah.
But that's not always the case, though. I mean, sometimes you have directors who they have a ton of trust in their cinematographer.
Yep.
And they're willing to say, I trust them to give me what I want. And when they get to set, usually probably 95% of the time, it's exactly what the director wanted.
Right.
Then there are other times where directors, it's not that they necessarily don't trust or have confidence in their cinematographer, but they want control
There's more hands-on.
of the camera. Yeah, the director wants to be able to have that camera on their shoulder and take the shots. And I think that's fine. I think either approach is really great. In fact, I think using that approach fluidly is okay. I think if a director trusts their cinematographer, but then if maybe they're not getting the shot they want, or if they need to demonstrate something to the cinematographer, or if they just want to do it themselves,
Right.
I think the director has all the right to grab that camera and say, hey, I'm going to take this shot.
Yeah.
And, a lot of times the cinematographer's not even touching the camera.
Well, right.
Right? I mean, the cinematographer steps behind the scenes. They're out there with their meter. They're making sure the light values are coming in.
Right.
They're working with the lighting team. They're working with the camera team. And a lot of times the camera operators are the ones who are actually using or taking the shot. So,
Yeah.
It's an interesting thing. Like, just because you're a DP doesn't mean you're a cameraman necessarily.
Well, right. And I mean, a lot of DPs don't necessarily want to be, and some do.
Now,
I mean,
what is interesting, it is a one-way street, though, in my opinion.
Oh, okay. Explain.
Well, I don't know. I guess it's not. It's so like I think about this sometimes. Like I'll see featurettes, behind-the-scene featurettes, and I see a cinematographer talking to an actor, and I'm thinking, well,
Sure.
yeah, of course. Like you guys have been working on this film together for 80 days. Like, of course, the cinematographer should be able to say to the actor, "Hey, could you do it this way this time?" Because the cinematographer is trying to get something for their shot.
Sometimes that's a big
no
taboo. That big taboo, though. Like,
oh, for sure.
And I think that's partly how
like Fritz Lang would probably not be cool with that.
He'd kill you. He'd straight up throw you down some stairs, just like Peter Lorre.
Right. He'd throw a 20K at your face.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's kind of more how we were taught. Not necessarily that was like the wrong way. Right. I don't think it was, because like you said, I think there's many different ways. But I definitely think it was like the textbook way.
I think when you're at film school being taught, though, it is necessary to teach the level of respect to each department.
Sure.
Training young kids not to cross over into other departments, because let them do their job, you do yours.
Yeah, and then when you're out working, break it heavily.
Absolutely. Which I think we do.
No, well, and that's kind of why I wanted to talk about this topic, because I wanted to talk about how that has evolved and how we have a director DP relationship, because coming into this company, and even just working with each other on narrative stuff, you were, at least when we started, it was like You were the DP.
Yeah.
I was the director.
Right.
Not on every project, but that's how, like, those were our skill sets. Those were our,
That was like
that's what we focused on.
Yeah, like when we were approaching a new project, you approach it from a directing standpoint. I
Right.
approach it from a cinematography standpoint.
And how that has evolved, I think, and why I think it's okay to, I mean, 'cause it's all about, I guess, what you're comfortable with and your scenario, because
Right.
for us, we're a two-man shop, not just in ownership,
Right.
also in execution. So
A lot of the time, yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
so, I mean, yeah, sometimes we'll have like one or two other people helping.
Sure.
But as far as a project goes, getting it done, we kind of wear all hats.
Right.
Like,
Well,
yes.
I think the biggest thing we do is we both wear the director's hat.
Right.
I think, because this is our company, this is our business and livelihood, and we both are responsible for that final image. And I think we've built a team where we mutually respect each other's creative input.
Yeah.
And we're not like, well, no, I'm the director, so your ideas are invalid. Like, we don't do that.
Right, but there's some shops that probably operate that way, or there are probably
probably
people.
bigger though, because I mean, honestly, I don't think a 2-man crew could survive that way. It'd be insufferable.
Well, exactly. But I'm saying I know people who work on small crews who still hold that kind of,
yeah,
I guess, that idea of
Yeah.
like, well, this is how it's supposed to be.
Right.
And that's where I think,
Yeah.
The idea of like how it's supposed to be
right.
gets you in trouble depending
Yeah.
on where you are.
It's interesting. Sometimes, like, you and I, we're both directors. We go into shoots, and we're both happy
Yeah.
to make the project a success. And I think that's good. And honestly, I think, like, we always tell our, like, assistants and people who come on board with us, like, if you have an idea, like, you're not stepping on my toes by at least approaching me with that idea. Like, I appreciate it. Thank you very
Right.
much. Like, if I'm seeing something wrong or you see it differently, let me know. I'm happy to have the conversation.
Right.
But sometimes I've been in weird situations where directors have opened up opened it up and been like, if anybody has input, let me know, because we respect everyone's opinion. And I'm like, that's like a 15-person crew.
Right.
And I'm there doing sound, and all I'm thinking to myself is like, that's weird.
Yeah.
Like, that makes me a little strange. Like,
Yeah.
in fact, one time I had a director approach me and be like, ask me my actual opinion. And I was hired as a freelancer doing sound
Opinion
on
on
their
the
shoot.
project or opinion on him?
Well, on the project.
Okay.
Like, what should we do? What do you think we should do? And I was kind of like,
You're like, I don't
felt
know,
like
man.
that
I
was
just work here, man.
I felt like that was breaking the model a little too much. Like, when you, not saying that sound guys aren't valuable or that we're not creative. Like, we are very creative, and yeah, everybody has ideas. That's fine.
But their brain space isn't there right then.
Well, that, or let's be honest, I'm a sound person. My
Yeah.
job is to capture good audio. Don't ask me to write your script.
Right.
Like, don't ask me to. So, I mean, you gotta be careful there. But I think, like, a director and a cinematographer, that is 90% of what people experience with a film.
Yeah.
Although, I don't know, sound guys, being a sound guy, we would argue that no, sound is more important than the visuals. But camera would just laugh at you, and that's totally true.
Yeah. I mean, everybody's going to think that. But I think ultimately, like, how we view it at our shop, and I think this is important because out of film school, I mean, you want to hold so dearly onto that I'm a director or I'm a DP, and that's cool. And if that all flies in the Hollywood system and like bigger crews and stuff, but like when you're a 2-man shop, and we tried to do that for a little bit, and just stuff that didn't get done. I mean, I feel like ultimately we were just like, you know what? We just need to work and use both of our minds and skills and talents to make this project a success and get it done.
Yeah, well, I think as we went on, yeah, like you said, we discovered what works for us. And even when we start, producing more and more content, and pushing towards that feature-length content, and we do have larger and larger crews with real budgets and things like that, even when we get to that stage, that's still probably how it's going to operate.
Yeah. I mean,
there's no,
right.
It's like, whatever, that's how we best operate.
Yeah, because I think at this point, we've pretty much just operated as like, well, we're the two at the head, making the vision come to life,
right,
and executing it, and everyone else who we put on, I think they kind of end up being more in the role that we asked them to be, but ultimately, we kind of just operate as like a duo now.
Well, I mean, yeah, we've built our team over the last, 5 or 6 years, maybe even more, to operate in that way where, like I said earlier, we can anticipate that other idea, right? Like, you'll say something on set where we need this for the story, and then I know, oh, here's how we frame that.
Right.
Or you might even be like, oh, I think a shot like this would be really cool, and then I'm sitting there thinking to myself, like, how does that fit in the story? And then we talk about that, and we're like, oh yeah, let's do that.
Right.
That makes a lot of sense.
Right.
So it goes both ways, and and there are even times where like you'll be doing one thing, across the shop, and then I'll be in a totally different location with a camera, and I'll be shooting stuff, and I'll be like, well, Steve will want this, 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 and this.
Right.
Because I just know how you operate. I know
right.
how our stuff comes together in post. So it's like we both have assumed the role of director over the years because of that, just how we work. And I think that's fine.
Yeah.
I don't, and I don't think there's a right way or a wrong way. I think if you can find a partner who you enjoy collaborating with, then do it that way.
Right.
However, I don't think there's anything wrong with people saying I am just a director. Though.
No, I don't think I don't want to dog on that.
Right.
I don't think that's what I'm doing in any respect. I think more so.
Right.
What you said. I wanted to have this discussion more from the fact of like, find what works for you. Find somebody who you work with symbiotically, or do it yourself. There's many different modes of thinking, but think about where you're at, like thinking about us, like we're a 2-man shop and we have to do everything. So ultimately I'm this and you're that, and that's the end of it, kind of didn't work.
Well, I think that, also talking about like what you said, like do it yourself approach.
Yeah.
I think that's an interesting thought to look at, is like, if you're a 1-man band, can you call yourself a director exclusively? Should you call yourself a director exclusively? It's
I don't know.
I think it's good for
maybe.
I think it's good for a director to learn cinematography.
Yeah.
Especially in this type of workplace setting.
Sure.
Like if you're a professional corporate production company and you operate pretty much as a 1-man band, but you're really quick, efficient, I think learning lighting techniques, learning camera techniques, I think learning the technology behind those techniques, learning the science behind that technology, I think all those things are necessary for a director. And I think even on something larger, it's not a necessity that you know all of those things as a director, but I think it really helps you as a director if you know how lighting science works and how the technology works, because sometimes it is frustrating when you're talking to a director and they throw up their hands and they go, man, I'm just here to direct the story. And it's like, yeah, dude, but I'm talking to you about like how the light visually will direct your story.
Hopefully a director doesn't do that to you.
Well, I mean, I've had those conversations.
Yeah.
And I mean, when it comes down to that, it's just that it's that moment where you just have to step into that role of educator and say, all right, well, but this is how this will affect your story, and is that what you're looking for? And over time, directors, I think that grows out of them, because it just and so they come into the conversation saying things like, I want soft lighting on this because it's supposed to be a more elegant, slower piece, and less dramatic. And then all of a sudden we're going to shift to really dramatic, hard light. And, so stuff like that. And I think, I don't know, I'm kind of going on a tangent a little bit, but I just think about, I think about the director. Honestly, in this situation, the director to me has more say over the camera and the director cinematography relationship than the cinematographer does.
Sure.
I don't think a cinematographer can come in and demand to a director, hey, I'm going to direct alongside you.
Yeah, in a typical scenario, but I mean, how we've formed it and how we have found that we like to work is kind of more symbiotic. Just like, I almost don't even see our like director and DP terms anymore. It's more just like we are the creative heads and we are responsible for getting the project done.
Yeah, I mean, probably honestly, as we grow, we'll be hiring more cinematographers to come in and just execute on vision,
Right.
because the directing is the most important part of any
Right.
piece. I think with poor direction, your piece suffers greatly. You
Yeah.
can have beautiful shots, but if you have a director who's not necessarily in it or isn't geared towards telling a really competent story,
Or doesn't know how to delegate.
well,
That's a different conversation.
And that comes down to crew size, and that's a different conversation, because then you get an AD involved.
Yeah, right.
Because I don't think a director should be delegating.
I guess more from the aspect of like knowing how to communicate their vision to other people.
Well, that's just it. If they're like, no, I just know it's not right. Like, if that's what the director's note is, it's not right. Well, what's wrong with it? I don't know. I just know it's
just
not
not
right.
right. It's like, well, that's not a good note.
That's not constructive.
Yeah.
Like, don't waste people's time giving.
Yeah, right.
Just
because somebody is quote unquote a director doesn't mean that that their bullcrap comment is not bullcrap.
But I like what we do here, because it gives. I mean, honestly, it gives us freedom, and it gives us the ability to be as creative as we want.
Right.
I think that's okay.
Well, and ultimately, it has two creative minds pouring into something, and it gets the project done.
Yeah, but I think it goes beyond that too.
Well, not like
getting
get the project done, like, oh man, just get it done and off the
Right.
plate. I mean, like, it gets it done and it executes it to our creative standards.
Yeah, to our standards. But I also think it gives us way more to look forward to.
Sure.
Because I think, like you said, we've tried it where, like, you're strict director and I'm strict cinematographer, and, like, as the project's going on, it's like, and one of us is sitting there, or I'm sitting there being like, no, this isn't right. Like, they need to do this, and so I'll come to you and talk to you about that, or whatever, or vice versa. If, like, the lighting is going one wrong way, you'll be like, ugh.
Yeah.
And you'll be like, why does it look like that? And you'll be like, and I'm like, I don't know, because that's what I wanted to do. And you'd be like, don't do that.
And we just kind of change it.
Yeah, and so you're just like, that's fine. And I think that's totally okay. So, at the end of the day, it makes the project better.
So, yeah, thanks for joining us. That's how we like to work as a director and cinematographer team. Let us know how you like to work in the comments. And if you have any questions for us or anything like that, please ask. If you like this content, we're making new content like this every day. So share and subscribe. See you on the next one.
See you.